Let's talk about one of the most haunted dolls in North America. Before I display him, I highly suggest you comment that you claim no negative energy in this video. Now, before I start, Robert, I respect you, and all I am doing is telling your story. In the late 1800s, Thomas Otto and his family moved into a mansion in Key West, Florida. The Ottos were known to be stern with their servants, sometimes even mistreating them. There was a woman who was hired to take care of their son Robert, and one day Mrs. Otto supposedly witnessed her practicing black magic in their backyard and fired her. Before she left, the woman gave Robert a lifelike doll which stood 3 feet tall, had buttons for eyes, and human hair believed to be Robert's. Soon after, Robert chose to be referred by his middle name, Jean, after being scolded by his mother. He told her that Robert was the doll's name, not his. Jean was often heard in his toy room having conversations with Robert. Household objects would be found thrown across the room. Jean's toys turned up mutilated and giggling could be heard. Robert supposedly attacked people, sometimes locking them in the attic. One certain night, Robert was found at the foot of the owner's bed, giggling with a kitchen knife in hand. Robert was later moved to the East Martello Museum in Key West, where he sits perched in a glass box to this day. One employee cleaned Robert, turned off all the lights, and left for the night. The next day, he returned to find lights turned on and Robert sitting in a different position than the night before, and a fresh layer of dust on his shoes. Some say he'll even curse you. If you want to take a picture of him, you may ask politely. He'll tilt his head in permission. Now I just want to say again, Robert, I respect you, and I am just trying to tell more people about your story. Have you seen Robert in person? Have you ever had any experiences with him? Let me know in the comments.
SpongeBob night.
My fault off.
Liam, come here. Liam, right now. What is happening? Okay, I'm calling your mom. Just stay right here. Cheese. Cheese. What you doing? What you see? What? What you see? Who are you saying hi to? Who are you saying hi to? Dude, you need to stop that. You're freaking me out. Come on.
I got guns in my head and they won't go. Spirits in my head and they won't go. I got guns in my head and they won't go. Spirits in my head and they won't go. I got guns in my head and they won't go. Spirits in my head and they won't go. I got guns in my head and they won't go. Spirits in my head and they won't go. I got guns in my head and they won't go.
Don't ever stay up past midnight again, especially during a sleepover. This, my friends, is the Midnight Clown. Click the plus, drop a like, tag a friend, share it through, or he might show up at your house tonight. He's an absolutely insane, vindictive clown, targeting kids who are having sleepovers. Kids being distracted, he ends up killing the parents. Then when the kids come downstairs to use the bathroom, they notice their parents. And then all of them are never seen again. And I actually just reacted to a video of people ordering a clown off the dark web. The first 100 people to click the link in my bio, subscribe, like, and comment on that video will get a shout out. Good luck, my friends.
Here are some rare photos of fascinating people through history. This was Jacques Plante, the first goalie in hockey to ever wear a protective face mask in 1959, and I think you could see why. In 1964, Randy Gardner set the world record for the longest time without sleep, staying awake for 264 hours. The objects that are next to him were used to prove that he was still lucid. This was Maurice Tillett, a wrestler known as the French Angel. Some say he inspired Shrek, and he went undefeated for 18 months in the early 1940s. In 1907, this swimmer, Annette Kellerman, was arrested for indecency for wearing this exact bathing suit at Revere Beach in Massachusetts. This is Brumasia Gelgi, the world's tallest woman at just over 7 feet. This was Valentine Tapley, who vowed in 1860 to never cut his beard if Lincoln was elected. Here he is in 1896. He placed 5th in a world's longest beard competition. They had some long beards back then, apparently. Oh my goodness. This was Albert Woolson, the last surviving Civil War veteran. He fought for the Union Army and died in 1956 at 106 years old. This was Ham, the chimpanzee, the first ape launched into space. His mission tested cognitive function and safety. It was successful, and he actually returned unharmed. This was Charlotte and Marjorie Collier, a mother and daughter who survived the Titanic. Charlotte's husband and Marjorie's father, Harvey, died in the wreck, and they also lost their life savings of 5,000 pounds in cash.
These are human body parts that may disappear in the future. First up is body hair. Originally, it protected ancient humans from harsh weather conditions. However, over time, with modern clothes and changes in environmental conditions, human body hair has significantly decreased and continues to do so. Many scientists believe it might eventually completely disappear. Next are wisdom teeth. They used to serve an evolutionary purpose for ancient humans who had much rougher diets and needed more chewing power. But our diets have softened and our jaws have become increasingly smaller. As a result, they have no space to properly grow in, and many people need to have them surgically removed. Many babies are now being born without wisdom teeth, and scientists believe this will eventually be the standard. Finally, we have male nipples. Everyone starts as female in the womb, and before the Y chromosome kicks in for males, nipples have already formed. When the baby becomes male, the prolactin levels decrease, making the male nipples non-functional. So while it's debated, some scientists think they'll disappear.
Rare people who are unique in the world. First, this 11-year-old Mexican girl has an IQ higher than Einstein's. Meet Adhara Perez. At just 11 years old, Adhara Perez Sanchez has an impressive record and an IQ that surpasses that of Einstein, as well as Stephen Hawking, whom she has always admired. Diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, Adhara started speaking late. Her teachers did not have high expectations for her future. However, thanks to her academic progress, she completed elementary school at the age of 5 and high school at 8. At 9 years old, she gave a lecture on black holes at an event organized by the Institute of Art and Culture of Mexico City, and published a book in which she shared her experience as a high-functioning autistic child, dedicated to children who suffer from the same condition as her. She has also been recognized by Forbes as one of the 100 most influential women in Mexico. Adhara is pursuing a master's degree in mathematical engineering at the Technological University of Mexico City. She is passionate about the cosmos and the stars. She dreams of joining NASA and participating in the exploration of the planet Mars. She also plans to design a connected bracelet capable of detecting emotions and preventing epileptic seizures.
This girl married her family's sworn enemy while pregnant with her ex-husband's baby, and then proceeded to become the first empress of Rome. Meet Livia Drusilla, or simply Livia. Now let me explain. Livia was born in a very important family. She belonged to the patrician gens of the Claudi. She's still a child when Julius Caesar has his rise to power, and she's about 16 when he gets. At 17, her father marries her off to Tiberius Claudius Nero. At that time, we have Mark Antony and Octavian that are determined to A, vindicate Julius Caesar, and B, through that, gain power. So she marries Tiberius Claudius Nero, and as soon as she gets married, she sees him off to war. Why? Because at the time, we have Mark Antony and Octavian on one side, who are fighting against the people that Caesar, Brutus and Cassius. Both Livia's father and Livia's husband fight with Brutus and Cassius against Octavian and Mark Antony. So her family, and probably herself, really hate this guy over here. Octavian wins. Brutus and Cassius get. Livia, in the meantime, has her first child. She's definitely not happy about the situation. Together with her husband, she's forced to flee Rome to avoid the recrimination of Octavian against his enemies. They go to Sicily, where her husband supports yet another of Octavian's opponents, Sextus Pompeius. After that, she's forced to move to Greece. So by now, she's probably like this, absolutely not amused, being like, this guy Octavian is literally ruining my life. She's never seen him, but she sure hates him. Eventually, an agreement is reached between Octavian and Sextus Sextus Pompeius, a general amnesty is announced. That means no recriminations of any sort. It means that Livia can finally return to Rome. And here's where the war movie turns into a rom-com. Because as soon as Octavian, the man that her husband has been fighting against all this while, sees her, he falls for her instantly. But there's a problem, she's married. And there's another problem, he's married as well. Follow for part 2.
"2025 just got even crazier, part 17. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from France, if you didn't know. But in 2025, a French lawmaker came out and claimed they want the Statue of Liberty back, and said, we gave it to you as a gift, but apparently you despise it. It will be just fine here at home. Now, people online saw this and said, we'll give the Statue of Liberty back, but in return, we get the Eiffel Tower. Oh my goodness. Next, when a delivery driver went to Starbucks to get hot tea, one of the hot venti-sized drinks fell onto the delivery driver's lap. Well, the man has now been awarded $50 million in damages from Starbucks because of the burns from the drink.
America has a new gun, and it's one that uses facial recognition and fingerprint scanners. It's called the BioFire Smart Gun. It's the first to actually hit the market, and it's more controversial than you think. You see, to try and push for more firearm safety, this gun only works when its registered owner scans their face or their fingerprint, and the gun locks and becomes unusable as soon as it leaves their hand. It's also trickier to build one of these than you think, because it's not just a gun with a fingerprint scanner slapped on the top. It's actually the first gun ever to not rely on a physical trigger mechanism, but rather it sends an electrical signal to fire the bullet, and it can only get that signal if it's in the owner's hands. But also because of that, it's roughly twice the price at $1,500. Gun control advocates think it's a great idea, saying at least it can't be used in the wrong hands like a child or a criminal. But some firearm enthusiasts not so keen. They fear that this technology could malfunction when you need it the most, or could be used as a slippery slope for more gun control laws over time. The question is, what do you guys think? Is this the gun that America needs, or not?
This is the disturbing truth behind Home Alone. Okay, so we all know and love the movie Home Alone. But did you know the disturbing truth behind it? So, Kevin McAllister grows up to be Jigsaw in the Saw franchise. If you think about it, the traps that Kevin made in Home Alone were extremely sophisticated and advanced, especially for a kid. So, as he got older, his traps became way more brutal, twisted, and complex as an adult. So, Kevin McAllister is actually Jigsaw, and he fell in love putting people in traps ever since the robbers tried to rob his house.
Top 3 strangest ways that people have died. Most people know what a Segway is. They came out just under 20 years ago, and they're basically a giant hoverboard with handles. And in 2009, a man bought Segway Inc. and became the CEO. And unfortunately, just 1 year later, in 2010, he fell off a cliff while on his own Segway while demonstrating its safety procedures. Coming in at number 2, we have the execution of George, the Duke of Clarence. He was the brother of 2 English kings and was sentenced to death in 1478. However, his only request for his execution is that he was to be drowned by a barrel of wine, which goes to show just how much he loved his drinks. And at number 1, the strangest way that somebody has ever died happened in 2013. In the middle of the night, a Brazilian man was fast asleep when a cow fell through his roof and crushed him. And apparently, according to local media of the town, this is the 3rd time that this has happened. Weird.
We know from this internal report at the hospital there were several missed opportunities where the consultants went to, in some form or another, a meeting, an email, a conversation where they were raising these concerns.
Arguably 15, 20 times they went to managers and flagged their concerns. And not only were they being dismissed, these external reports were being established that were, never going to get to the bottom of why the children were unexpectedly collapsing and dying. We know that now with hindsight, but they were also by the end being victimized, bullied. The doctors were actually looking for new jobs. Some of them, their mental health, really suffered because they felt this burden, you know, should we as individuals have gone to the police early?
This is one of the heartbreaking true stories that likely inspired adolescents. When actor and writer Stephen Graham was asked about stories that inspired the show, he said, "Where it came from for me is there was an incident in Liverpool, a young girl, she was unalived to death by a young boy, and I just thought, why?" It's being reported that he was likely referring to the high-profile case of Ava White. Ava White was an innocent 12-year-old girl who lost her life after attending a Christmas light switch on in Liverpool city centre. She was reportedly approached by a group of teenage boys, and a verbal argument broke out after one of the boys apparently filmed her without her permission and put the video on Snapchat. After Ava asked for the video to be removed from Snapchat, one of the boys, who was aged 14 at the time, unalived her with a knife. I'm sorry I have to use this strange lingo on TikTok. I just don't want to have the video flagged. The schoolboys were all questioned by police, but ultimately it was decided that one of the boys, a 14-year-old, was guilty of taking her life. The young boy who was found guilty of taking Ava's life was sentenced to a minimum of 13 years. One of the similarities between adolescence and this heartbreaking true story is that the boy that was found guilty actually maintained that he was innocent right up until the end. But it wasn't just this story alone that inspired the show. Stephen Graham also said there's a number of stories he's seen on the news about young boys being violent towards young girls that did inspire the story. He also specifically mentions the case of Brianna Gay, who was lured into a park by two teenagers and unalived. He said, "I just thought, what's going on and what is happening?"
Facts that might save your life one day. Alright, so if a person you don't know shows up to your house and asks for help in the middle of the night, do not open the door, especially if you're a girl alone, because human traffickers tend to use these tactics to lure girls outside. So just make sure all your doors are locked and call the police straight away. Next, if you ever feel like something bad is about to happen, trust your guts and just leave, because in most cases you might be right. Now, if you're ever involved in a plane crash and it crashes in the ocean, whatever you do, do not inflate your life jacket. Instead, wait until you're outside the plane, because if you inflate it while you're inside, you could get trapped inside as the water level rises. And finally, if you were ever to go homeless during winter, do not sleep on the ground, because people have literally frozen to death that way. Instead, try to find some cardboard pieces and sleep on that, because the ground itself absorbs way more heat than cardboard.
This video will keep you up at night. A man was working as a security guard at a warehouse during his night shift, and he began to feel a little creeped out when weird things started going on in the warehouse around him. He was the only one in the warehouse, and it was about 2:30 in the morning. So he brought out his phone in hopes to catch something unexplainable on camera. At first, the video he took seems pretty normal. There's absolutely nothing weird going on. But when he pans over to the food he brought, the apple moves on its own. He goes to reach for his apple, but right when he does this, the cup on his desk seemingly moves on its own. The man is obviously pretty frightened by this and doesn't know how to react. But when he goes to grab the cup, it again moves on its own away from his hand. Many people believe that this is staged, however, it looks pretty real. What do you guys think?
Here are some accidents that changed the world forever. A scientist left a dirty Petri dish on his desk, came back days later, and then realized the mold inside had just killed bacteria, accidentally discovering antibiotics. A radar engineer felt a strange heat in his pocket, looked down and saw that his chocolate bar was melting. He had just invented the microwave. A chemist trying to make a super strong glue ended up with one so weak it barely stuck, but years later, that failure became Post-it notes. notes. A naval engineer dropped a metal spring, watched it bounce perfectly down a flight of stairs, and turned that mistake into the slinky. A physicist experimenting with electricity saw his own bones glowing through his hand, and before he even knew what it was, he had discovered X-rays. A man pulled burrs off his dog's fur, realized nature had built the perfect hook and loop system, and turned it into Velcro. A scientist building a heart monitor grabbed the wrong part, made the circuit pulse, and unknowingly created the first pacemaker. An ice cream vendor ran out of cups, spotted a waffle maker next to him, and rolled one into a cone, changing ice cream forever. Two astronomers kept hearing annoying static in their telescope, thought it was bird poop, and accidentally found proof of the Big Bang. A company selling wallpaper cleaner was going bankrupt until they realized kids were playing with it, so they rebranded it as Play-Doh. A scientist knocked a coated glass flask onto the floor, watched it crack but not shatter, and accidentally invented safety glass. A chemist absorbed an experimental chemical through his skin, started hallucinating, and unknowingly discovered LSD.
This is the scary story about the school trip. An entire class of 6th graders went on a school trip one day. Everybody was taking pictures with their phones and cameras and having such a great time. But when they all got back to school, they started looking through all the photos they took, when suddenly one of the girls screamed, "Oh my god, what is that?" In the picture, one of the boys in the class was sitting on the bus, and nothing seemed strange about the photo until you looked at his reflection in the window. His face in the reflection looked like it was yellow and bulging, and completely mutating. Also, there is a white floating figure behind him in the reflection. Everybody turned the photo upside down and realized it was a human skull, and it was horrific. And when the boy saw the photo of himself, he immediately burst into tears and had a panic attack. The teacher then took the boy to the nurse's office, and the principal banned everybody from speaking about the strange photo ever again. And to make this even scarier, 7 days later, the boy died from a brain tumor. The photo is said to be on the internet somewhere, but I don't recommend looking for it.
Can someone explain to me what happened to these trucks? Would you rather live here with unlimited food and no internet, or date the third person who appears when you click share and then more? This is supposedly footage of an alien abduction caught on CCTV. Question time. How old would you be if your age was flipped backwards? Let me know down below. Should this family get rid of this doll or not?
This is what happens whenever I put her near my daughter's old Cabbage Patch toy. But that's not the weirdest part. There's no batteries. But wait, there's more. I even cut the wire to see if that would stop it. Is she causing this?
Last month, 3 suitcases were discovered in Florida with human remains inside, and now a man has been arrested for his wife's murder. On July 21st, police in Delray Beach, Florida found a suitcase in the intercoastal waterway after someone called 911 to report something strange they saw in the waterway. This discovery, police found 2 more suitcases nearby, and the next day found 2 additional bags. Inside the suitcases and bags were human remains of a woman only described at the time as, quote, a white or Hispanic middle-aged woman with brown hair, approximately 5'4". The investigation into these suitcases led police to surveillance footage that then led them to a suspect. Multiple witnesses told detectives about a vehicle and person who was seen in the area multiple times before the suitcases were found. A couple who lived near where the suitcases were discovered told detectives they saw a white male looking into the Intracoastal Waterway several days before July 21st, the day the suitcase was found. They said he appeared to be looking for something, presumably the suitcase, and they saw him 5 to 6 times over a 3-day period before the 21st. When confronted by the couple, the man said he was waiting for the big boat to come into the harbor. Another group of witnesses who were working on a roof at a property next to where the third suitcase was found said that they saw the same man standing on the seawall looking at the suitcase before he got into his car and left. Video surveillance in the area captured a vehicle tag that led them to their suspect, Delray Beach resident William Lowe, and he had a wife that matched the name that came back from an airline scan code on one of the suitcases. Adil Barbosa Fontes matched the brief description of the remains found in the suitcase, and she shared the same address as Lowe. This led police to acquire a search warrant for the home of 78-year-old Lowe. In searching his home, police found blood spatter throughout the residence, including in the living room, dining room, and primary bathroom. There were also drag marks observed throughout the home, and cleaning supplies that contained blood splatter were found as well. While they were executing the search warrant, detectives said that Lowe attempted to re-enter through the back window, and when he was stopped, he just said he was trying to get his phone and the keys to his storage unit. A search of that storage unit uncovered a chainsaw that appeared to have blood and human hair on it. After all of this, Lowe was arrested on July 31st. During questioning, he reportedly said that his wife Adil had been in Brazil for about 3 weeks. But when questioned further about her trip, he did not know how she got to the airport, what airline she flew on, or the last time he spoke to her. When shown photos of the suitcases, Lowe reportedly said he had never seen them before. But police knew at least one of them belonged to his wife because of the airline tag that had her name connected to it. And when they asked Lowe about this, he just said, "I don't know." Day after Lowe's arrest, the victim found in the suitcases was positively identified through dental records as Adil Barbosa Fontes. ME declared the manner of death to be homicide and the cause of death to be a gunshot wound to the head. The next day, Lowe was charged with first-degree murder and abuse of a dead body. He was denied bail and he has not yet entered a plea, so he remains in prison until his next hearing. Hopefully, he will have to pay for what he did. Rest in peace, Adil.